When it comes to choosing a starter aquarium, you've got lots and lots of options. But what's important about choosing what fish you have will depend on what kind of aquarium you have. Now, this tool setup here by Interpet was put together by our in-house aquascaper Gary, and I'm sure you'll agree looks beautiful. But you've got to remember that the amount of oxygen you lose at the top here is half, or the amount of oxygen you gain is half of a tank this shape. And you've also got to take into account how deep the fish you want are going to want to swim, and which fish are comfortable swimming up and down instead of side to side. By contrast, our starter tank, the Fluval Spec, is the same size, 60 to 62 litres, but you can get more fish in there, you get more oxygen in and out of the top of the surface of the water because you've got more space, and it gives you more options on what you get to put in there. In this case, we've gone with guppies.
So we've made some progress on the Fluval Evo. We've added a few more plants in there at the moment. For a tank like this, to get this sort of level of plants and to go for slightly more sophisticated or hardier plants, we really do recommend adding a CO2 unit onto the tank. Basically, it sends some CO2 through here into the little through the air tube. Then you've got a little bubbler, and then the bubbles tell you roughly how many bubbles of CO2 are put into the tank. It goes from here up into the tube, and it goes down there, down the tube, into a diffuser, and then that sort of diffuses the CO2 into the water column and spreads it out. So we're using a Fluval 45 gram on that one. It comes in a kit a bit like this. This is a slightly bigger kit, it's the 95 gram. This will set you back around £75, and it comes with everything you need. So really, to really get that extra lush green colour out of your plants and really get some good growth, you do really want to have a CO2 unit. You can use liquid CO2, but we do prefer to use a CO2 unit, and we use them on all our planting tanks. So we're very happy with the Fluval one, so we would recommend something like the Fluval kit.
Just to show you how easy a CO2 system is to set up, it looks very complicated, but you've just got a canister and a stand, one tube into your bubbler, as you can see there, and another tube up over the top into the water by your diffuser. Nothing to plug in, no extra energy costs, but it will give you, as Lewis says, your lush green plants. So today we're going to be doing some complete water testing to show you what we test for, how to do it, how easy it is, and how you can keep your tank and your inhabitants looking like this.
If you're going to keep an aquarium, or if you're just about to set up an aquarium, it's really important to get yourself a good test kit. This is the API freshwater test kit, and it's one we recommend, it's one we personally use, and we'll do a few videos showing you how to use this. There's 800 tests in here, it's about £36. You want to be testing weekly to make sure you're keeping track of your parameters. It's also a good idea to keep a log of those parameters so that you know the personality of your tank, you know roughly sort of what your average parameters are, what your usual pH is. And when you're cycling a tank, which is when you first put the water in and you cure it and you're letting the bacteria build up, it's a good idea to test quite regularly then. So then once the cycle is over, once your ammonia has built up and died down, you'll understand exactly roughly when it is right to put the fish in, and that your tank's sort of settled and ready for the addition of fish. So it's a really good idea to get yourself a decent test kit, and we do recommend the API Freshwater Master Test Kit. Okay, we're going to start off with the ammonia test kit. Ammonia tends to come from build-up of waste, excess food. It's usually the thing that that can start an algae growth or an algae bloom, and it's quite a common occurrence in tanks. So it's important to test regularly to make sure that you're not overfeeding or to make sure there's nothing going too wrong in the tank. So you're going to start off with one of these test tubes, and you're only going to want 5 millilitre, which runs roughly to about that line. So you can either dip it in or you can use a syringe. There we are, roughly at the 5 millilitre mark. So for the ammonia test kit, you've got 2 bottles. And on each of these bottles in the API master test kit, it tells you how many drops to add. So we're going to start with the bottle 1, the solution. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll place the cap on. And you're just going to agitate it for a little bit just to get the solution going. The test recommends usually about 30 seconds, but it's give or take. Okay, cap off. Then moving on to the solution, bottle number 2, and again, 8 drops into that. Seven, 8. Don't worry too much if there's one less or one more. Again, put the cap on. Now, in the test water, in the API freshwater master test kit, you're going to be getting a series of cards, color charts, which you're going to be matching your parameters up, the color of the water in the test tube. And so for ammonia, really you want a nice yellow color, because that means it's 0 ppm in your tank, so there's no ammonia in there, or very low ammonia, and that's what you want for the ammonia test kit.
So I'm here with Brandon carrying out a pH test.
You give the bottles a nice little shake, just to start off with. And you add 3 drops of the pH. This is going to tell us whether it's acidic or alkaline. So most tropical fish prefer slightly softer waters, so rams, tetras and stuff like that. So you have got your Malawi cichlids that do prefer it slightly harder, of the alkaline scale. We'll give that a few minutes normally to settle in.
What colour are you looking for, Brandon?
Ideally around about a bluish colour. That sort of kind of tells us it's around neutral. The ideal pH that I like to tell customers to aim for is around about the 7.7 to 7.2 ideally.
Okay.
Depending on the species of their fish, as I say, if they do have Malawi cichlids, then they will be aiming for around about sort of kind of 7.8 to 8 pH. So that's about 7 anyway, but yeah.
So for these guppies, we're looking spot on.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, so next up is the KH water test. So again, 5 ml of tank water into your test tube.
A nice little shake of the bottle. So firstly we add 1 drop of the KH solution. We get a nice little mix up, we get a nice blue colour. And then we've got to count every drop until it goes back to the yellowish colour, and then that will determine the KH. 1, 2. In the meantime we've added in the drops, give it a nice little shake. So we have got a 2 KH in the tank. Ideally we would be aiming for around about a 4 KH, so the carbonate hardness. It's a little bit low, so it does need a little bit of a buffer.
Why is carbonate hardness important?
So the carbonate hardness will allow bone structure, so it will allow the fish to intake to allow the bones to grow, so that also has an effect on your calcium as well. So they work in conjunction to allow your snails, the fish, any invertebrates or anything like that to have a nice growth as well. But it will have a fluctuation on your pH. So if your KH is quite high, then your pH will also sort of kind of be quite high as well. So they will always work together between each other, but ideally as a neutral pH you should be aiming for around about a 4 KH.
And what product would we need to buffer the KH with? Is there just something you can drop in a tank?
Yes, there is. You can get powdered forms, you can get liquid forms. There's a lot of marketing out there for it all now, so.
And it's not overly expensive?
No.
Good stuff.
Nice and cheap.
Marvellous. So now Brandon is testing for nitrate in this tank. So same as always, 5 ml out of the tank into your test tube.
So nitrate is quite an important one. It tells us that the tank is going through a nitrogen cycle. It can be very toxic towards the fish, especially any new additions that you're adding into the water. So 5 drops of the nitrate solution. Give it a nice little shake. We're hoping that the colour will stay that blue colour. We're not looking for any purple or anything like that. You do normally have to wait a few minutes just for it to mix through properly.
And just for the shorthand, nitrite is NO2.
Yes.
Because we will also be looking at nitrate, which is NO4.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So we'll come back to this in a few minutes and see if there's any change. Okay. So this time we're looking at nitrate, not to be confused with nitrite. This is a different element of the nitrogen cycle, which will be happening at all times in your tank, pretty much regardless of what you've got in there.
So just bear in mind with the nitrates, especially the API product. So we're still adding 10 drops of this one. We had 10 drops of bottle 1. Now bottle 2 is very important because it's crystallized inside the bottle. So if you don't give it a good old shake before you use it, it can have an impact on the results that we do get. So a nice little shake. Generally we would do it for around about 30 seconds. But on this occasion we'll cut that time down slightly. And the same process, 10 drops of number 2. And this is the end product of the nitrogen cycle, and this will determine whether we're water changing our tank enough. So again, we're looking for, ideally you don't want 0 nitrates, but if you do have a planted system then sometimes it can't be helped. But we do like a little bit of nitrates in the water, but if it is too high then it can deplete the oxygen levels and have a big effect on your pH and stuff like that. And you don't want that to happen because it can crash your cycle, so meaning that the nitrogen cycle won't be working.
We'll leave those for 2 minutes and come back and double check. Okay, we've been away and had a cup of tea, and we've come back for our nitrite and nitrate samples.
So nitrite, as expected, is at 0. So where we would like to keep it. And then our nitrates are sitting roughly around about 10, in between 10 and 20, which is okay to hold it at that level. Ideally we don't want it to slip anything above 20. So the nice little aim point, 10 and 20 on the scale, and that's the colour chart that we're looking for. Nice little yellowy, orangey colour.
So we've looked at testing for an aquarium and your fish tank indoors, but what about testing for a pond? If everyone regularly tested their own pond water, it would eliminate around 70% of the pond problems that we encounter at Shirley Aquatics from customers. Freshwater test kits are only around £35 and will last 18 months if you test weekly. That's less than 50p a week. It would cost a customer more than that in fuel to come and see us every week with an issue. More importantly, it also saves lives. Customers often only come in when there's a very serious problem, and by that point, it's often too late for any changes we recommend or make directly to make a difference. It's particularly prevalent at this time of year, as we're moving from the colder weather into spring. Ponds have been rained on over the winter, and bits of plant and leaves have fallen in and begun to rot, adding more problems. We understand that pond maintenance is not high on your list of things to do when it's cold and wet and dark outside, but it really is important. Many keepers aren't testing for their KH, carbonate hardness. This supports and buffers the pH, which in turn plays a part in ammonia control. KH is important because the Birmingham area specifically has very soft water and a very low KH, so it does need to be supplemented in your pond. The trouble is, if you've not been testing regularly and you come to test coming into spring, you'll notice your KH is 0, your pH is off the bottom of the scale, and your ammonia is through the roof. This is a very dangerous combination for your fish. So the thing you would think you'd have to do is add KH. The trouble is, by that point adding KH will bring your pH up, but will also bring your ammonia up and make it even more toxic to your fish. At this point, the only recourse left are huge 75 to 80% water changes every few days. An incredibly stressful process both for you and for your fish. You can avoid all of that by simple weekly testing. For less than 50p per week and 30 minutes of your time, We'll put a link in the description of this video for you to buy yours now. Here are a general few pond tips to get you into the warmer weather. Remember, crystal clear pond water is not a sign of perfect health. Plenty of poisons are colourless. Ammonia is the perfect example. The ideal pH range for your pond is between 6.5 and 8.5 pH. The blood pH of fish sits around 7.4, so that is perfect. Some fish prefer slightly higher, some fish prefer slightly lower. Come and speak to our guys in the cold water section to learn about the individual preferences of your fish. Lastly, when you come to testing, you should test for ammonia, nitrate, pH and KH weekly, and keep a log so you can become familiar with the personality of your pond. There are 4 big myths surrounding blanketweed. The first one, that it doesn't grow in winter. Now, as you can see from our footage here, blanketweed does grow in winter, it's just a lot slower. Now, if you want to get a handle on your blanketweed issue, actually winter is the best time to do it, and Clarity is one of the best products to do it with. And at $7.99 a tub, it's well worth doing. The second myth is that if you've got loads of plants in your pond, then blanketweed should be no problem and won't occur. Well, again, as you can see from our footage here, there are plenty of plants in these ponds, and there is also plenty of blanketweed. The third myth is that blanketweed will only occur if you have loads of fish producing loads of waste. The setup you see in front of you here is a 3-tiered system. There are 3 small ponds that all feed into one another, with the middle one housing a roughly 5 small koi. So in this particular setup, there are not a lot of fish producing a lot of waste, but there is still blanketweed. In fact, the middle pond, which has the fish in it, of the 3 has the least blanketweed. The last myth that we want to dispel is that blanketweed only occurs in hard water areas. Now, we're in South Birmingham, and the Midlands in general has very, very soft water, which obviously is contrary to the myth that it only grows in hard water areas. Blanketweed is a real issue, and Clarity, this product Richard is using in our video here, is the perfect example of something that is there to help you remove it long term. And at $7.99 a tub, it's well worth it in our opinion. Please find a link to this product in the video description below. So what we have here is Richard Cook, the owner of Shirley Aquatics, using Clarity on his ponds at home. Now, he has some blanketweed that has appeared in his ponds that he needs to deal with, so he uses Clarity and advises that all the customers use Clarity if they encounter the same. It's simply 2 scoops of Clarity into roughly a pint's worth of pond water, mixed in and then introduced to your pond. Now, one thing to bear in mind is not to use this in direct conjunction with any other dosing or treatments you're giving your pond, as it is a clay-based subject. It will soak up some of those treatments if you're not careful. So all you need to do, as Richard's doing here, is to introduce it to your pond and agitate it around. The ponds that Richard is using here are 3 little ponds in a row that all feed into one another. So he's used the main bit into the left hand side as he's looking at it, and a small amount into the koi pond in the middle.